All right, everyone, we start off today talking about Mitch McConnell. The overwhelming majority of people want him to retire from Congress. That includes a majority of Republicans, by the way. But Mitch is having none of it. Link in the description. Archived, of course. Talk about stubbornness. You're having absence seizures, so clearly something cognitively has gone on at some point, probably a stroke prior to it. Your hands are all bruised. Sometimes you're having falls and stuff. It's sort of like the Republican version of Joe Biden. Joe is kicking it, though, compared to Mitch McConnell. McConnell's basically in the running at this point to be Feinstein Jr., and yet he refuses to stand down. The problem is if you have someone with cognitive issues lording over the Senate minority, heading multiple important committees, etc., can you, and by the way, the de facto standard bearer of part of the Republican Party going into an important election. Technically, the true standard bearer is Trump, but Trump currently isn't in a political office. So you basically got an oligarchy. You've got Mitch McConnell from the Senate, Kevin McCarthy of the House, and then Ronna McDaniel from the RNC itself. If one of those people is incapable of doing their job, despite constantly having... here's the problem. When most of the questions that you're asked at a given presser are you sure that you can continue, Mitch? Are you sure that you're cognitively normal? How can you continue performing your functions? You're all fucked up, basically. Wouldn't you think that it's time to call it quits and, assign somebody else to manage things while you preferably get treatment? It's not like Mitch McConnell necessarily croaks tomorrow or something like that, but at the very least, aren't you trying to do a rehabilitation or something like that? Physical rehab, so preferably you don't fall down and break a hip. That when you're in your 80s, that can be a problem. Mental therapy, of course, of some sort or another. I would think that would be more appropriate. Everyone else agrees it. I'm sure that probably even McConnell's own family members, probably some of them are like, Granddad here is getting on in years, and he keeps doing all this weird shit on TV, and he's kind of scaring people. Normally, if a person is elderly and they've suffered multiple falls in the prior year, and they're having cognitive issues, normally they end up, you sign the papers. By the way, I don't believe in old folks' homes and involuntary commitment to them. I prefer the assisted living thing makes more sense. It's more humane. They've got entire villages over in Japan for dementia patients. Why can't we do that in the U.S.? Oh, that's right, regulations and cost. That's normally what happens. But with U.S. politics, we don't see that happening. Feinstein is like, I'm all messed up and I literally have to be told how to vote, but I refuse to stand down till my term ends. We'll see if she even makes it that far. Mitch McConnell is messed up. He's not retiring. Joe Biden is messed up. There are other members of Congress that are beginning to go Strom Thurmond mode. I think it's time to have a conversation about imposing some sort of physical and mental litmus test, one that's transparent and public as opposed to behind closed doors at the special DC pharmacy where they can get their dick pills and nobody will know about it. I don't believe in term limits or age limits on being a member of government, but there should be a limit on if a person in public is repeatedly having this kind of issue. With a normal person, you'd run afoul of elder abuse law, potentially. You might get sued by the state if you're trotting out some 80, 90-year-old person who clearly is not fully with it to make money, and there could be an element of other people forcing them to do that. That becomes a law issue as well. But somehow we don't apply that to Congress. We don't apply it to people within politics more broadly. The sitting president of the United States, the steward at least, is quite clearly having early stage dementia. He went off the rails the other day with Joe Biden and started shouting during one of his speeches again. That's because he's trying to do it for effect, but it doesn't work when you're in your 80s anymore. It just makes it seem like you're having a spell, a senior moment. Mitch McConnell, though, of all of them, I think is arguably the most stubborn. Biden never fields questions about such a thing. He's answered that question like twice, and he says, no, come on, man, I'll take you behind the woodshed and do push-ups or something like that. With Feinstein, at the very least, she's cutting it loose. She's just being stubborn enough to wait out the term, mainly for Adam Schiff's purposes more than anything else. Again, there's some funny business. It looks like there are other people running the show, because I don't think it's Feinstein. She can barely even walk on her own at this point. With Mitch, though, he's very open-ended. He's like, well, I'm confident that I can do my job. I'm perfectly fine. You literally just had an absence seizure in front of the cameras, and you're telling us that you're fine. That's stubbornness. In all of these cases, though, there should be some recourse, because these are public officials. So they're being paid by me. They're being paid by you. They're either being paid by the members of their state or by the federal government, and that means tax money. That's why there's a different litmus test, a different standard and effect than for a private business. Arguably, we should invert it and have less oversight over people who are old and potentially infirm and going zonkers, but they're still walking or whatever, and they're in private business, and we should aim more of that at government officials, I would think. It would make more sense. We'd get more return on investment. It doesn't really make sense to continue paying millions of dollars to somebody who is no longer fully functional. It's not like a Greg Abbott situation where, okay, the man can't play a basketball tournament because he had polio when he was a kid, but he's mentally normal. It's both physical and mental with Mitch McConnell. We've seen it. You can try to gaslight and say, no, Mitch is fine, but we can see it with our own eyes. We're being told to ignore all of the signs that are there repeatedly. The people are seeing through it, but all of these individuals, again, remain very, very stubborn about it. And it's regrettable because there are some problems going on in the world right now, and I think that having so-called leadership that's at least cognitively unimpaired would be a fairly important thing. But that's not really what we have. Again, the president and the leader of the Senate minority right now, as well as a ranking member of Congress who's on her way out, she will leave, Feinstein, are all demented. That's worrisome indeed. That's about all. Peace out.